Welcome back to James Pigeon. So today I do not have a script. I'm just gonna ramble a bit about this new alt history timeline I have made. Currently, I have only developed lore for North America. North America is my favorite, and it is the place that I care a lot about in history and know the most about. So I've only made lore for North America so far, but if anyone can think of like any lore that would happen to Europe, Asia, even Africa, South America, then let me know and I might expand the timeline using your ideas. And I guess I would credit you if you want. So I'm just going to ramble about this timeline. So basically this is called Shattered Eagle 1790. So you are looking at a map of North America in the year 1790 according to this alternate timeline. And all the countries are labeled. So anything in a shade of purple is a Spanish colony. And anything in a shade of red to tan is a British colony or British influence at least. So I'll just go over all of these little countries. Well, a lot of them are the same for now, but I think there's going to be, this is kind of like the eve of war. I think there's going to be a lot of conflict in this. So and if anyone would predict what do you think would happen next, let me know. So Alaska, which is being cut off, but you can see it. Alaska's not that big yet. They just have some of the Aleutians and Kodiak Island, but that's just Russian. They're chillers. Nootka in Spain. So in 1790, Spain was claiming all of this, and Britain was also claiming all of this, that giant land. Now, in that entire land, Spain had literally one fort with like 200 people, but that's kind of how it worked. You could make one fort and be like, I own this giant piece of land, like 5 times bigger than Spain. But Britain challenged it and they invaded it, and then they settled it at international court, and it was determined that Britain and Spain would share it, but really it fell under British influence. And it actually, the Nootka agreement is foundational in international law because it established the principle that you need to occupy a place to have control of it. You can't just claim sovereignty over a massive piece of land and not occupy it. You need to actually have men. So I think Nootka in this could be a place of conflict, because in this timeline, Spain and England, this is 1790, they had been at war in the Revolution not that long ago, like a decade ago, so maybe England and Spain go to war again. Louisiana, peacer, yeah, it doesn't go to France, stays Spanish, which, it was, I think France had it for like 3 years or something, right, because it was French, went to Spain, and then went back to France, and then went to America, right? If I'm remembering this right. Louisiana was a French colony. They lost it in the 7 Years' War, and it went to Spain. And then Spain gave it to France, and then France sold it to America. Anyway, they're chilling, and then all, like, the Mexican states, there's not really, they're just chilling. Same with the Caribbean. Okay, so then you have Prince Rupert's Land, and that's just the northern British colony, and that's just a chiller. And then you have British North America. So British North America, you'll see it's really small, and that is all that remains of the direct, the only places of direct British control, besides Florida, are Rupert's Land and British North America. But yeah, Rupert's Land is their company lease. So I guess it's not even direct British control. It's Hudson's Bay Company corporate lease. British North America is their like direct colony, and it's basically centered at Newfoundland. The capital is St. John's. And I'm thinking this is, I don't know if this would become its own country or it would probably merge with the Rupert's Land eventually, but I don't know if it would, I don't know if it has enough people to become independent. like Canada did, because it's really missing the population center. And then we have the Dominion of America. So the Dominion of America is British, but it's a dominion, which means that they're self-governing. The UK just technically controls them, like very technically. I mean, like Canada was a dominion until like 1986 or something, but Britain did not really have direct control over Canada since like probably like the 1890s or something, maybe earlier, I'm not sure, but yeah, they're a dominion. So it includes New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, which, I made this a while ago. I made this maybe a month ago. Looking back, I've learned more about these regions, and I feel like they might join New England because they were like actually settled by New Englanders, but I'll just say, that they'll join this dominion. And then Quebec is there, and then Ontario, and New York, and Vermont, because, in this timeline, Vermont stays. Also, the biggest changes you'll notice there are 4 different Americas. So the Dominion of America, basically, I'll just go over why there's 4 Americas, then I can explain. It'll be easier if I just explain that first. So the revolution goes as it did, OTL, but in 1784, 1 year after the Treaty of Paris, basically a civil war breaks out among the colonies over some colonial disputes. So New York and New Hampshire go to war, and then it turns into like a Middle States versus New England war, which also is aided because Connecticut and Pennsylvania go to war. And this is all historically based because New York and New Hampshire both had claims on Vermont, and Connecticut and Pennsylvania both had claims on the Wyoming Valley. So it turns into a Mid-Atlantic versus New England war. And then the South just, they basically just see the writing on the wall and make their own country. So anyway, Dominion of America gets offered by the British to get protection from everyone else by being nominally British, but they'll get self-governing. And New York was always like pretty loyalist, so I think that New York would take them up on the offer and basically get merged with Canada, but they're self-governing, so they really get what they wanted, just nominal British dependence. Then you have the Federation of America. The Federation of America is New England, and again, they split so that there was the Mid-Atlantic New England War. So New England split, and they formed a federation, and, they're way more centralized because that was the Federalist hotspot in our own timeline. They're kind of just chillers. They're very, they're centralized. They're a federation. Pseudo-theocracy almost, but not officially a theocracy, but they're basically a theocracy. And the Federation of New England, they're basically just chilling, and I don't know what will happen with them. And they also, you'll notice they control New England, and they control the Western Reserve of Ohio because that area was settled by New Englanders. Which I think they will try to expand into the Indian Territory, which the UK will not like. Then we have the United States of America. So it's just, at this point, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, because Pennsylvania and New Jersey, they're the middle states, and I feel like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, they're peaceful. They'll probably just stay with America. And Delaware was a colony of Pennsylvania. Literally, they had the same governor for, decades. So that is all that remains of the United States of America, and they're still using, the Articles of Confederation, I guess, but they'd probably move to the Constitution, or some form of the Constitution. But, yeah, that's the United States of America. That's what remains of it. And, I forgot to say the leaders, by the way. They're led by Benjamin Franklin, near the end of his life. The Dominion is led by Alexander Hamilton. the Federation is led by John Adams, and the Confederation, who I'm about to get to, is led by George Washington. So the American Confederation, they see the writing on the wall in the Civil War, and they just split, and they make a confederation of these southern states, and they're not really resisted. So yeah, the American Confederation is they're just like a southern copy paste basically of the normal US, except they're a lot looser because the South was like wanted more states' rights and Jeffersonian and stuff. So yeah, they're led by George Washington. They're really centered in Virginia, and then East Florida and West Florida. So Florida's still British, and then the Northwest Confederacy. That is an Indian buffer state that is a British satellite. And I think a lot of the conflict, in my mind, is going to come from the United States, New England, and the Confederation, maybe even the Dominion, trying to settle the Northwest Confederacy's land, which is supposed to be a buffer state to avoid war with Spain. So they're going to try to settle the British satellite, and then I'm assuming Britain will go to war. There might be another war, which I'm guessing the sides might be like the U.S. remnants and Spain versus the U.K. and the Indians. And then Greenland still is Denmark. Everyone else is chilling. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what the implications on this would be for Europe, or what you think would happen. So if anyone thinks they could predict what would happen, or if anyone wants to make a map of like what they think this would look like in the year 1890 or 1990, that'd be cool. So let me know. So yeah, that's this timeline that ends the rant. So goodbye.